She heard the words. Only 5 of them. But in that sterile, silent ICU room, those 5 words were a violation. They were a demand so profoundly impossible, so deeply shocking. They instantly fractured Nurse Sarah's professional shield. This was the moment everything changed. This was the final request. And she knew, the instant she heard it, she would either break protocol or break her own soul. This conflict starts now. The patient, Mr. Arthur, admitted 2 nights ago. No family, no insurance, a homeless man. Just another number in a long, endless stream of the desperate and the forgotten. But Mr. Arthur possessed a quiet dignity that defied the poverty clinging to him. He never complained. He never asked for help. This alone was a major question. Who was this man? Sarah had seen it all. She'd learned to build walls. To survive the ICU, you had to detach. You had to stop asking the big, painful questions. But Mr. Arthur's eyes, full of a strange, profound peace, were an immediate, relentless challenge to her detachment. Every time she checked his vitals, those eyes followed her, silent, knowing. She tried to dismiss him. Just another lost cause. A file to be closed. But that quiet peace was the first breadcrumb that pulled her away from her routine. Sarah had a history here. A darkness she buried beneath her scrubs. A memory of loss. And Mr. Arthur, this dying man, somehow knew where the cracks were in that faded photo. Who was the woman? Who was the child? Mr. Arthur never spoke of them. Yet, when he thought Sarah wasn't watching, he would press his thumb to the image, a silent plea, a secret held tight. What was the secret of this quiet man? And how was it connected to the request she had yet to hear? His vitals plunged. Rapid deterioration. A code threat. Sarah worked on pure adrenaline, slamming drugs, shocking the system. She saved his life. Again. But in the frenzy, her hand brushed his, and he squeezed her finger. A gesture of thanks, or something else entirely. As the monitor stabilized, Mr. Arthur looked directly at her. Not at the ceiling. At her. He whispered 2 words. Not a thank you. Not I hurt. He whispered, "It's time." Time for what? The words were cryptic, but Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the hospital AC. The doctors and administration saw only liability. A dead-end case. They debated when to stop aggressive treatment. But Sarah knew this. Mr. Arthur was fighting. Not to live, but to survive long enough for something. He was waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for her. Time accelerated. Dawn broke. Mr. Arthur's window was closing. Sarah knew the administration would pull the plug soon. If she was going to get the truth, if she was going to hear the reason behind his fight, it had to be now. The moment had arrived. She walked toward him, the weight of her cynicism replaced by a crushing, desperate curiosity. She had to know. She had to break her own rules. She leaned close, ready to hear what she thought would be a goodbye. She was wrong. She was profoundly, emotionally wrong. She leaned in, bracing for a simple plea for water, or a final prayer. She was wrong. Dead wrong. Mr. Arthur's final 5 words escalated into an unbelievable demand. I need to see the stars. Not outside, not through the window. He needed to see them here, in the ICU. The request was illegal, impossible. It was a violation of every safety protocol in the building. Sarah pulled back. Mr. Arthur, I can't. You know I can't. It's against regulations. It's against the law. The legal wall was instantaneous. But Arthur wasn't pleading. He was demanding with his eyes. He cut through the protocols, through her fear, with a single, quiet sound. He didn't argue. He presented the evidence. The faded photo. He pointed to the ceiling tiles, then back to the girl. It's for her, he croaked. The promise. The immediate conflict was now about a promise, not a preference. The photo was the key. The request made no sense, unless you knew the past. Arthur hadn't always been homeless. He was a successful architect, a family man. His life was built on light, promise, and a simple, powerful vow he made under the open night sky to his little girl. Then came the devastation. Not an accident, but a tragedy of choice, betrayal, and loss that stripped him bare. He didn't just lose his wealth. He lost the right to keep that promise. The promise he'd made to the little girl under the stars. The shame of his failure drove him into the streets. 2 decades of cold, lonely regret. But he stayed in the city. Why? He was near the promise. He was waiting for the one person who could understand the profound, impossible finality of what he was asking. Arthur forced his eyes open and whispered a name. The observatory. Not the current one. The old one. A landmark torn down 15 years ago. A detail only someone who lived here as a child, or a very long time ago, would ever know. The air left Sarah's lungs. Her childhood. A place she hadn't thought about in 20 years. A place tied to a devastating night she had buried beneath medical degrees and sterile procedures. The memory was hers. Arthur was not just a patient. He was a messenger. The light was back. The same confusing, painful light that haunted her dreams. Sarah's professional distance collapsed. Arthur's pain was a mirror. The loss she carried, the cynicism she wore. It was a shield built around that forgotten light. "You know the pain," he whispered. "I saw it when you were running those tests. You hide it well, nurse. But I know what it's like to lose the right to keep a promise." His words didn't accuse. They validated her deepest, most private wound. He confessed the true, devastating purpose of the request. It wasn't about the stars. It wasn't even about him. It was a secret act of penance for the child in the photograph. An offering to heal a wound he caused decades ago. A wound that had everything to do with the place Sarah remembered. The magnitude of the request hit her. It was a violation of her Hippocratic oath in spirit, yet an adherence to it in humanity. She had to choose. Regulations and a clear conscience, or an impossible, illegal act of compassion. Time was running out. Administration was due for rounds in 30 minutes. If she was going to commit, if she was going to risk her entire career, her freedom, her life, it had to be now. The moral deadline was set. She thought of the consequences. Losing her license, losing her livelihood. But then she thought of the look in Arthur's eyes. The profound dignity of a man willing to die peacefully only if he fulfilled this impossible vow. The cynicism vanished. The walls came down. The nurse was gone. Only Sarah remained. The woman who remembered the old observatory. The woman who remembered pain. She nodded. The answer was yes. The risk was absolute. The plan was audacious. It relied on a loophole in security, a forgotten basement corridor, and a colleague who owed her a favor. She moved with the silent, practiced grace of a seasoned professional committing the perfect crime. Every shadow was a threat. Every squeak of her shoe was an alarm. One wrong move, one curious staff member, and Arthur's last hope, and Sarah's career, would be instantly vaporized. The tension was suffocating. She located the equipment. Heavy, bulky, clearly not meant for patient transport, but essential for the success of Arthur's impossible vision. What was she going to build? What was the true request? The clock was the enemy. Only minutes remained before the supervisor would check Arthur's charts. She had to move faster. She had to take an even greater, more reckless risk. This was the point of no return. Cutting the feed. Total operational blackout. She leaned over Arthur, whispered a silent prayer, and began the final, most dangerous phase of the plan. The moment of truth was here. The impossible was complete. Sarah had taken the most sterile, controlled environment in the hospital and transformed it into the limitless night sky. This wasn't just a projector. It was a replica of the sky as it looked 20 years ago, over the old observatory. Arthur's final request wasn't impossible because of its nature, but because of its immediacy. It had to be replicated now. He looked up, and in that moment, the years of pain, the shame of the streets, the fear of death, it all evaporated. There was only the sky, only the promise kept. The profound realization of his desire was written across his face, pure, utter peace. The payoff was delivered. He whispered the child's name. A quiet apology. A final, beautiful acceptance. The stars, the true, impossible stars, were not for him. They were the fulfillment of his sacrificial promise to the daughter he had failed to keep safe decades ago. He spoke, but his final words were not about the stars, or the girl. They were for Sarah. The light you lost, he breathed. It was never gone. You just need the darkness to see it. He saw her. He didn't just see the nurse. He saw the broken child. The long tone began. His quiet journey was over. He had waited, not for treatment, but for the chance to fulfill his vow. He died not in sterile silence, but beneath the cosmic tapestry of his promise. His final act wasn't just for a memory. It was a profound gift to the woman who saved his dignity. The peace was instantly shattered. The door hissed open. Dr. Reynolds, the administrator who had argued for ending Arthur's care, stared at the stars projected on his ceiling. The shock was absolute. The confrontation inevitable. Reynolds didn't need words. The violated security protocols, the specialized equipment, it was all laid bare. Nurse Sarah, the doctor finally choked out. Do you understand what you have done? This is gross misconduct. This is career suicide. Sarah refused to panic. I gave a dying man peace, she stated. I ensured his dignity and fulfilled his final wish. I did the moral work that this hospital was too afraid to do. Her defense was absolute. She traded regulations for humanity. Then the real shock. Sarah adjusted the projector, focusing the starscape on one specific, bright nebula. The same star Arthur had pointed to, the one connected to the old observatory. She revealed the deeper truth. This act was connected to a tragedy known only to a select few in this city. Reynolds couldn't speak. The sheer moral weight of the situation was crushing the professional outrage. Sarah's transgression was clear, but her justification was undeniable. The consequences were still coming, but the victory of compassion was already won. It took an internal investigation, but the truth finally emerged. Arthur's tragedy, the loss of his family, the promise, it was real. He died a pauper, but he had given the richest gift. He showed Sarah that her true purpose wasn't just healing the body. It was about tending the soul. Arthur's final request did cost Sarah. She faced severe disciplinary action and a temporary suspension, but the loss of her old career freed her to find her true calling. She became an advocate. She learned that the greatest inspirational story is not about survival, but about legacy. Arthur needed the stars to keep his promise. Sarah needed Arthur to remember the light she had lost. We often overlook the everyday heroes among us, the quiet people who ask for nothing, but give everything. They don't wear capes. They wear worn clothes. They push cleaning carts. They lie on hospital beds. This real-life hero story is a painful, beautiful testament to the fact that the hardest requests are often the most necessary. Compassion is not a policy, it's an action. And the quiet bravery required to deliver it can change everything. What promise do you need to keep? What act of selfless compassion has changed your life? Tell us in the comments below. We read every one. If this story moved your heart, share it, and hit that subscribe button to join the quiet, brave community. Thank you for watching this heartbreaking, inspirational story.